10 years?
What?
When I started with the company, we did nothing electronically. Everything was on paper. In fact, the HR team had craft time every payroll where we had to print out every single timesheet and manager approval and cut and paste the approvals onto the timesheets.
There was no running water in the office. I mean, you guys have a kegerator now. Things have changed a lot.
And I got the bright idea one day that I wanted to be president, and I got everybody else on board with it. So we went back and I wrote on a piece of paper, Tide Prater president, put it on the door of Ron's office. Went in Ron's office. Andy, when we had in-houses come in, Andy would go out and greet the folks and come back and welcome back to the president's office, knock on the door and say, Mr. Prater, are you ready to speak with so-and-so? And I'd turn around and say, yeah, you can let them in, or I don't have time right now. And they would come in and I would interview them across a big desk. And yeah, it was amazing. And I finally told that story probably 5 years after the fact, because I would probably got fired.
My first day, I remember coming into the office. I didn't have a desk, I didn't have a laptop, I didn't have business cards, I didn't have anything. And actually Ron went out to, I believe it was a Costco on my first day, bought a folding table, card table that ended up being my desk, as well as Bagley's, and a laptop from Costco as well that I ended up using for my first couple of years at Strive.
He was up talking about projections and goals that were absolutely preposterous based on the fact that we had no business at the time. But he was so impassioned and he talked with such, belief that you couldn't help but be like, all right, we're gonna do this.
I remember coming in the old office in Rosemont, turned the corner, went by the offices into where all the cubes were, and there was a picture of a guy in about an 8x10 frame with a little monkey on its back that kind of sort of looked like Andy Bagley. The other memory I remember is walking into the conference room back then, and literally every inch of every wall had some sort of whiteboard, a different whiteboard, somehow screwed to the wall. So there was probably 15 to 20 different whiteboards in that one room, all piecemealed together, one by one across the whole thing. So
we had a quarterly review that night, and he didn't even want to show his face. He was hiding out in the back of the room, and we purposefully weren't telling him kind of the results. And then when we let it out that we had won, just watching him kind of yell, and you could see the emotion that was coming over him, and how big of a deal it was for him, for us. In the first couple of months of working here, that was pretty cool to see.
Just like anyone in the early days, we met at the classy Cafe Zaloot.
So I met Ron in 2007 at a little restaurant called Cafe Zaloot on Devon Avenue, where the headquarters and where it all started.
9:58, 9:59, 10 o'clock comes, 10:05, 10:10. Ron wasn't there. I was literally about a minute from packing up and getting out of there, and in comes Ron in a bustle. He actually had a different cozy in mind initially, and then realized he was at the wrong one and headed on over.
He didn't recognize me because in my LinkedIn picture I had a full beard and I was clean shaven, and I think we looked past each other for the first 5 minutes in the restaurant before we connected.
So I met Ron when I was 16 years old, which is shockingly 19 years ago. It was actually at my godparents' house, which were his to-be in-laws, and he was there for the first time, kind of meeting the greater family. Pretty sure I've just gotten in some pretty heavy trouble with some poor decisions with a girlfriend and throwing parties, but yeah, it was 19 years ago, and for some reason he actually followed through and brought me on board, 15 years later.
And I had just come back from a vacation to Jamaica, where one night, one of our last nights there, in the middle of the night, got robbed in our hotel room. And I was telling Ron this story, and we were kind of trading back and forth different stories. And he told me the story about how some guy was threatening him and stalking him, somebody that he had interviewed. And so it was an interesting first meeting, and really got to know him, I think, pretty well in that first encounter with him. Obviously, it didn't scare me away since I'm here today.
I met Ron first in Tijuana, Mexico. No, I'm kidding.
And after a day of meetings, we were sitting at the hotel bar and just started talking about music. I just kind of spent the next couple of hours having drinks, eating a little dinner, and just talking about different music influences, likes, dislikes, and
We immediately hit it off. I think we talked about business for a minute, and then the rest of the conversation was pretty much about jazz.
We kind of laughed about it because we didn't believe him, but his wife Kate took out her phone and video recorded him promising to shave his head because she thought it was one of the coolest things ever. And so the next week when we got back, I told Ron that I completely understood if he didn't want to or couldn't shave his head, and he just laughed and said no, he was definitely committed. And so seeing Ron, the CEO of our company, shave his head in honor of my daughter and to help fight childhood cancer was one of the proudest and best moments that I've ever had working for Steve.
All of a sudden it was time to leave, but Ron had been gone for what seemed like forever. I walked outside with, I think, Tide or somebody else, and no one had seen Ron. People were asking where he was. And then over, Senior Frogs, you walk out the door, and then over to the left-hand side, there's Ron by himself, swinging on this big swing and just giggling. And who knows how long he'd been there, but it was, I don't know, quintessential Ron.
So Ron and I actually shared this little room in the basement, and it was kind of like the movie Step Brothers, if you ever saw the two twin beds. And it was a rough day for Ron, it was a rough day for me, and we both go to bed, turn out the lights, and ready to call it a day. And Ron proceeds to just crack jokes and make funny one-liners throughout the night, and we're like two little kids giggling in the bed after probably one of the worst days we ever had from a business point of view.
Walk in the car, and Ron's sitting here giggling, and he's got my phone. I'm like, what are you giggling about, man? And he goes, he poked everybody in your phone. He poked every guy and girl, essentially, that I was friends with at the time on Facebook. So I think that kind of sums up Ron and his personality.
a younger Ron, fully bearded younger Ron, I actually think is a little bit like Seth Rogen. So if you can get any Photoshop out there to do that, I think that'd be awesome. But when I look at that, both personality as well as looks, I think that's a good fit. And then as Ron ages a little bit and will continue to age, Keith Olbermann actually is another one I thought.
The celebrity that Ron reminds me of would have to be George Clooney, because they both have that silver fox thing going on.
Eric Wareheim. Eric's probably a little bit better looking than Ron, but they have a similar sense of humor that can leave people confused and sometimes uncomfortable.
Steve Carell and Vince Vaughn wrapped into one.
And if you'd worked with him back in the early days, it was a really loud boondoggle.
It has to be the either form of boondoggy, B-doggy, boom.
Boondoggy. There's just nothing more classic than that.
Well, and that's it. Question mark in the end of it. And that means what's new, what's going on, what's the updates on the latest things we just talked about, all wrapped up in one word. And I get that one probably about 5 times a day, whether it's on the phone or in person. Yoked, Y-O-K-E-D. And what he means by that is somebody that lifts, works out a lot, big muscles, the guy's yoked. So
Right on. So the number of times I hear right on from Ron as he's moving through a meeting discussion, it just will always stick with me that is pure Ron.
For some reason, it cracks me up every time Ron says green bean.
I do like the boondoggy and beautiful.
We're in Chicago. There's business all around. You look over both shoulders and you turn around and see the one company billboard that was in his view out of his office and say, Osay's right there.
Proud to call you one of my best friends, and I appreciate you, man, and cannot wait to see what we're going to do over the next several years. Congrats, buddy.
Congratulations, Ron.
Congratulations, Ron. Congratulations on 10 years with the company, Ron. Thank you for all that you do.
Congratulations, Ron.
Congrats, Ron. Big 10 years. We've come a very long way.
Congratulations, Ron.
Congratulations, Ron!
Congratulations!
Congratulations, Ron.